It's been a long time since I've sat down, started a game and played it from start to finish. It's partly because games are much longer than they used to be, so therefore can't be completed in one sitting, but it's also because most games available today just don't grab me like they used to. I believe that this is down to the fact that a lot of today's AAA games feel so similar to one another and rather uninspired. But it's also because as a gamer in the year 2015, I'm spoilt for choice when it comes to choosing something to play. I have the backlog of games up to my ears, so if a game doesn't grab me and hook me pretty quickly, then I'll probably just stop playing it and move on to something else. Some would argue that this is a very bad habit, but I don't see the point in wasting what little free time I do have playing bad video games. Luckily for me, Super Time Force Ultra is the opposite of a bad video game, and as soon as I began playing it, it had me hooked. Before I knew it, like the characters in this game, I had lost all sense of time, as 7 hours soon passed with me glued to the television screen. Simply put, this game is brilliant, and it's an absolute steal that Sony gave it out for free for PS Plus members. Super Time Force Ultra is a 2D side-scrolling bullet hell game with a time travel twist. Now just a note of warning here, I've never ever been a fan of the bullet hell genre, mainly due to how terrible I am at bullet hell games, but developer Capybara Games have taken this genre and reinvented and reinvigorated it. It reminds me of the way in which Pac-Man Championship Edition took a game that I admired in Pac-Man, but was never particularly good at, and evolved it into something that I absolutely adored. Normally in bullet hell games, once the player dies, their progress is impeded in some way, be it by being sent back to a checkpoint, being sent back to the start of a level, or receiving a game over screen. The time travel twist in Super Time Force is that when the player dies, they are then able to rewind time from that point. The player is then able to choose a character and respawn from where they see fit on the timeline. The amazing thing about this is that the player's previous character still exists in the current timeline, and will be fighting alongside the player controlled character until they reach the point where they previously died. This opens up a whole range of possibilities and possible strategies. So perhaps there is an enemy who's in your way. Well, that means it's a perfectly viable option to send a character kamikazing into them, and then going back in time to respawn as another character, who can then wait for that enemy to die at the hands of your previous character, and so you can then pass them by. Perhaps you need to take out a giant boss creature. Well, no problem. Just blow the hell out of them as much as you can until your character dies, and then go back and respawn as another character. Now you have 2 people fighting the same monster. Perhaps 2 isn't enough, or what about 10 or 20? It's also possible to go back in time and save your previous character from their death, i.e. by killing the enemy who previously killed them. This allows the player to absorb the character they have saved, and grab a 1-up, allowing them to take an additional hit from an enemy before they die. In addition, the player also gains the other character's abilities, which means you can control a Sniper Jedi, or a dinosaur with a rocket launcher. In summary, death is a key part of Super Time Force, and in most cases it can actually be a good thing. One instance in which death isn't a good thing though, is if you're on your last life. At the start of each level, the player is given a limit of 30 respawns and a 60-second time limit to complete the level. Extra time and lives can be found hidden in the game world, but if you run out of lives or run out of time and don't have any lives to travel back in time, then it's back to the start of the level. It might sound difficult, but I only really ever encountered the timeout screen and the mission failed screen a few times in my entire playthrough. It helps that all the levels are split into different acts, meaning none are too lengthy to complete with the given lives and time limit. Speaking of the levels, after the player completes the opening tutorial level, they are able to select from 5 other levels, with the 6th being the final boss level available later, displayed on a Mega Man-esque layout. Each level pays homage to some work of pop fiction, with levels that clearly take inspiration from Mad Max, Jurassic Park and Blade Runner for example. The levels themselves are all varied and unique, as are the enemy types. There are also some wonderful set pieces in this game, such as fighting a giant poo, yep I did say that, protecting an atomic battering ram, fighting on a flying SWAT car, and my personal favourite, being teleported into a computer and having to fight a boss while surfing the internet. Super Time Force Ultra is a game full of imagination and creativity. The characters featured in Super Time Force Ultra also heavily reference film characters and popular culture. We have an obvious character who is supposed to be John Rambo, we have a Jedi, Merlin, and even some secret Sony characters to choose from. All characters have access to a standard and charge attacks, and they all have their own perks in battle. For example, Amy McKilling's standard attack allows her to ricochet bullets off surfaces, while her charged attack allows her to send a bullet through walls to get to hard to reach enemies. With over 15 characters available, which all have unique attacks, there's a hell of a lot of variety in this game. Super Time Force Ultra is also a game that is incredibly stupid, but stupid in a good way. I mean, this is a game that has a character who has a shield called Shieldy Blockerson, and the guy who discovers time travel in the first place is called Dr. Repeatski. Get it? Repeat ski. Anyway, this game is also constantly throwing terrible puns at the player, but somehow it actually makes the game better. Super Time Force never pretends to tell some heroic epic story about time travel. Instead, our characters just want to travel back and forward in time to meet their own means. One level, for example, involves the player having to travel forward in time just so they can get a better internet connection so they can watch some more videos of cats, for example. And each time the player travels backwards or forwards in time, every time they land they end up killing someone or something. Super Time Force Ultra is at times really genuinely funny, and the ending cutscene is so weird and bizarre that I laughed all the way through it. Although I mentioned at the start of this review I completed the game in about 7 hours, there's a hell of a lot of replayability in this game. Each level has a range of collectibles to find and hidden characters to rescue, as well as an STF perfect ranking to try and aim for. There are also 50 puzzle based challenges available to play through, and once players complete the main game, there's a super hardcore mode that unlocks, in which if a character dies you have to go back and save them, otherwise they won't be available to select again. I truly believe that Super Time Force Ultra is one of the best hidden gems that is available on the PlayStation Store. It's an expertly crafted wonderful game that brings new life to the bullet hell genre. It's not only one of the best indie games available for PS4, it's one of the best games available on PS4. And if you haven't played it, well, it's time you do. Super Time Force gets a 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching, goodbye.